The Bearcats move on to the second round for the second year in a row. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the IRIC Real Estate Pilot Point Football Show. As the Bearcats use an explosive third quarter to get past West 45-17. That was such a important moment. I mean, when you're playing a team like West, you're already up 10 points. You're coming out of the halftime. Man, good teams like West, that's when they pounce. And they're a team that you can be up by 10, and then next thing you know, 3 possessions later, you're down by 7. And Pilot Point didn't allow that to happen as they scored 21 points, break open that game. Huge win for Pilot Point. Yeah, it's the playoff game, of course, but also I just was very impressed in how they won that game. Now you take on Commerce. The last time Pilot Point and Commerce played was in the playoffs, all the way back in 2002. I was actually at that game. And at the time, I was actually working for Commerce Radio. Not really working for, I was a student, so I was interning. But Scott Garner, who did the play-by-play for Commerce then, he let me do a lot of stuff with the broadcast. I got to do the production of the halftimes, and I also got to do the sideline interviews at the end of the game. I got to interview both Commerce's Terry Cron at the time, and then, of course, legendary G.A. Moore. That was the first dealings I had with him, and he was super, super nice, even after a tough loss when Commerce won that game. I think it was 17-14. I can't really remember the top of the head. But so this game to me is very nostalgic, and it's going to be a fun one. In a region that is absolutely stacked, I think this is the best game of the week, and I think it is going to be a blow for blow. Whoever has the ball last will be the winner. All right, we're going to do what we always do, and that's talk to the head coach of the Pilot Point Bearcats, being Chad Worrell, of course. But first, I want to thank our sponsor. They've been there all year long. We've had a blast dealing with them. Of course, IRIC Real Estate, Chance Kirby. If you're wanting to buy anything around the Lake Ray Roberts area, Chance is the guy you want to reach out to, 940-300-6900. You can call or text him. And the reason I say that's not just because he pays us to say it, but also because that man's been there for over a quarter of a century. He knows the lay of the land. No pun intended with it being real estate. But Chance is your guy if you really, really are interested in that area. Again, reach out to him, 940-300-6900. And also want to remind you that he is the one that runs the Pilot Point Bearcats broadcast that you can find on YouTube. One of the best in the state of all levels at Pilot Point Bearcats Insider. They'll have the game. And the great thing is you can go back and watch the other games. A lot of times, man, you know, we're bouncing all over the state on Fridays in the regular season, and we rely on these teams that archive their broadcast. And that's the way we've been able to follow Pilot Point, even when we're in, you know, watching Jim Ned. That next Saturday, we wake up in the hotel, and legitimately, the Pilot Point broadcast is usually the first one we go to watch and see how the game went and to get some of our notes from. So check that out as well. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's the head coach of the Pilot Point Bearcats, Coach Chad Worrell, right here on the IRIC Real Estate Pilot Point Football Show. As I was saying, you know, we bounce around statewide every week because Grant Goodwin and I talk statewide at Texas high school football at the 3A, the 4A, and the 2A level. Our playoff shows are some of our favorites, and we get a lot of feedback on them because Playoff Tree makes his annual appearance through the playoffs. Coach X, a real coach in Texas, likes to write in with his amusing anecdotes and diatribes. That's the only way I can say it. So check us out. YouTube.com/@L4 Media. That's our video show. You can also catch the audio only of the same show on our podcast page, S2S grantandterry.com, or on almost all podcast platforms. Now, let's get back to Terry and Coach Worrell. Terry Bennett back here on the Pilot Point Football Show. Now joined by the head coach of the Bearcats, Coach Chad Worrell. And Coach, first off, congratulations. Back-to-back seasons with the opening playoff win. You beat a really good West team. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I just thought our kids played really well. It seems like a month ago when we played that game since it was last Thursday, but we played really well. And, I mean, you know, we knew they were going to be a challenge for us, you know, on both sides of the ball. But I thought our defense played really well from the get-go and rallied to the football and used our speed over their size well. And our offense, you know, we stuttered or sputtered there a few times coming out to start the game. They gave us some different looks than we'd worked on all week, but our coaches did a great job of making adjustments. To our blocking schemes and little tweaks in our play calls and things like that. And we were able to, bust it open there in the third quarter.
I was going to say, first off, very impressed by the defensive performance. When you and I talked off the air last week, we both kind of felt like this might be a little bit of a shootout, but your defense kept a really good offense down. And that third quarter, that ability to have the lead, but then step on the gas, to me, was very impressive.
Yeah. I mean, we felt like, we came out in third quarter, we didn't feel like that 10-point lead was safe at halftime, but we were able to get some big plays and bust that thing open in the third quarter and kind of put it out of reach there. And that was really important to playing well in the third quarter.
We all, most of your guys play both ways, and we always end up tending to talk a little bit more offensively. But Caden David on offense, a great game, but also a key turnover. The weather's nicer, but it's still so tough for these kids when they're playing both ways. Have you seen any kind of tiredness, or are they just resilient? And now that the playoffs are here, a little bit more adrenaline?
We've got a couple of players that are true two-way players for us. Caden's one of them. Hunter Newman's one of them. And we try to get those guys breaks a little bit on offense, try to get them out whenever they start getting tired or if they have a big run. We have some depth there at the running back spots, at all of our running back spots. And that's been a huge advantage for us, is being able to get those guys who play defense off the field on offense, to get a breather or a series or, 4 or 5 minutes to catch their breath before they have to go back out. And so that's been really important. And that's that's a credit to the depth this team has, that we've got 2 or 3 fullbacks. We've got 2 or 3 running backs that can go in and play, and we're confident in their ability, and that makes it nice.
Well, and it also, having that depth, but also having guys that aren't selfish in a system like that, because you're always the guy that wants to throw a lot of backs at the defense. And so these players, again, I know you've talked about it so much, but how special this group is. They've bought into everything that you have said, hey, if you trust me, this will happen. And they just continually trust you.
Well, they do. I mean, they've bought into that. I mean, that's a credit to them and this, the community and the cultures that they've bought into. Like, we don't care who's carrying the ball. We don't care who's catching the ball. We just want to win. Yeah. And it takes that. I mean, it takes that mentality, and they've done a great job and being unselfish all year long and willing to do what we ask them. Sometimes the running back may only have 3 carries in one game. The next week he may go over 100 yards, and they know they have that ability, and that may happen. We really don't have that planned out. Sometimes that's just the way it happens. Dravion James had a huge game last week with over 100 yards rushing and 2 long touchdowns to really, show his explosiveness. And he's a great example of someone who's been unselfish and been patient and believed and just, gets out there every day and plays hard on defense every snap. And then when he gets his chance on offense, he takes advantage of it.
All right, we move on to the second round. You're taking on an upstart Commerce team that kind of shocked the state earlier this year with back-to-back dominating wins against Winsboro and Malakoff. When you look at the film, what are your thoughts on the Tigers?
Well, I mean, their quarterback jumps off at first. I mean, he's a dual threat, a really good athlete, can throw the ball, can beat you with his legs as well. But they've got a lot of other guys. They've got good receivers. They've got a receiver with some Division I offers. They've got a running back that's explosive and hard to tackle and runs really strong. But their lines on both sides are what makes them go. I think their offensive and defensive lines are really talented. They're big and they're hard to move, but they also move well. And so getting those blocks and getting off those blocks when we're on defense is going to be key tonight. Being able to offset their strength and size up front.
Yeah, and we every week it feels like you're saying, hey, they're bigger than us, and we've got to figure that out. But you brought up a good point. To me, what makes both of their lines so good is not just their size, but their athletic ability and the technique. They play really good technique football.
They do. That's no doubt about that. I mean, that's the difference in them and some of the other teams we've played this year. I think is just that not only are they big and strong, you can tell they're really, really strong in the weight room by the way they move people. But they're very sound and fundamental, and their coaches do a great job with them. They're well coached, so we're going to have to, we're really going to have a great effort on the defensive side of the ball. And then when we're blocking them, the same thing. We're going to have to make sure that we get those level 1 blocks secured, and then try to get those linebackers. And the linebackers do a good job of flowing to the football and making plays. So it's going to be a great challenge for both sides of the ball tonight.
We've talked about this many times again, this senior class, but how special would it be for them to be able to get this win and get into that Thanksgiving week of preparation?
Man, I just want it for them so bad. I've told them that on Monday. Told them that, during the scouting report on Monday that, I really want them to experience that. And it's our third goal that we have every year of our four. The third goal is to get to Thanksgiving and, enjoy that week and how special I think that is and how special it feels for teams to be able to do that. And, we're there. I mean, we're able to achieve that goal if we can play well against Commerce and come out on the right end of that. And I just, really like for our kids to experience that. They deserve it with everything they've done and all the work they've put in and, the attitudes and just their overall unselfishness and all that. Man, this is a great group of kids. It's been a fun year to coach them, and I want that for this community and the kids.
It's funny. I was going to tell you this off the air, but I'll just say it now. And this is nothing against any of your other years of head coaching, but just knowing you for a while, this feels like this has been one of your most enjoyable years.
It's been a fun one, man. It's hard to compare. It's hard to compare each year because each group's different, but it's been a lot of fun. Last year was a lot of fun. We started off the year, lose with some challenges, losing some games that we thought we could have won or had the chance to win and didn't. And then we kind of got on a roll there at the end. And, and man, just a credit to that group of seniors last year that led us and kind of set the table for this one. But this group's responded every week. I mean, this year, they responded throughout the spring and throughout the summer, and they responded, through practices in August, and they're just fun. Sometimes there's just those fun groups to coach where you don't have a whole lot of challenges off the field or whatever, and this is one of them. And they have a great group of parents, and the community's excited. So, it's really just all that, bottled into one. It's been a really, really fun year.
If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments for Coach Roll or for me or for Chance Kirby, email us, Terry at S2Ssport.com. 1 week away from the mythical greatness of Thanksgiving playoff football. I know you Pilot Point fans have lived it well. It's been a while, but you've still been there. And man, there's just something about it. And we were talking about that off the air about, state championship week is awesome, but it's so fast now and it's so compacted, especially for him, because not only will he have his, we will have the show if Pilot Point gets that far this year or when they get this far this year or whenever. But he also has all these other, media commitments that are needed when you're doing a state championship game. And then if you play the game, win or lose, everything's just kind of, just crunched together. You're in and you're out and you're gone. Thanksgiving, it's different, man. There's something about it. It's a slower week. You've got the Thanksgiving morning breakfast, which is one of the coolest things you can do in high school football, where the parents usually, and every school I know that goes to Thanksgiving does this of some form, whether it be a Thanksgiving breakfast or a Thanksgiving lunch or a Thanksgiving brunch even. And there's just something special about it. And it's so awesome, and it's such a blast, and it's such it marks the arrival of programs when you can start getting consistently to that third round of the playoffs and having those Thanksgiving week events, and Pilot Point's 1 week away. No matter what happens tonight, though, this has been a great season. This has been such a blast. The foundation is there for Pilot Point. It's only on the bigger things. As my co-host Grant Goodwin said after we watched the Palmer game, we're seeing the beginning of a dynasty, and I truly, truly believe that. So if you're going to the game tonight, be safe. Have fun. If they win, we'll be back next week. If they lose, we will have a Coach Worrell show as a retrospective for the end of the season, but we will do it after the season. I usually do that the week after state championships. All right. Until next time, this is the iRick Real Estate Pilot Point Football Show.